Okay, so last we talked, I don't know, this summer? Was it this summer? We started working together at the new year.
Yeah, I think it was probably in June. I mean, I could go through my emails and figure it out, but I think it was in June because I left to go to LA in July, and then
yeah. Well, the last we talked, you were on a round, and I have to say, when people just jump onto a round of the protocol, that usually to me is a sign there's something going on.
Yeah, and it wasn't actually a jump. It was it was when we were last talking. I remember thinking, all I could think about, even though all of this made sense and I was happier, and I was like, I'm ready, and I had some health things with my skin, and then the diabetes scare and the high blood pressure, and you talked me down off that cliff, and then everything was kind of like normalized, and I was feeling really good, and my eating to hunger was really good. And then what I felt like was I didn't want to tell you that I wanted to do a round and test it because I was afraid that you were going to tell me all the reasons why I was going to fail, and I wanted to do it on my own. And I didn't mean it I don't mean it for you to be like in a hurtful way, but more from a clinical way of all your past experiences and maybe my stubbornness. That no, I want to see where I'm at all on my own to see how I did. And so, I didn't start it right away. In fact, I waited.
That's where we left off. I'm pretty sure that was our last conversation that we had.
Yeah, well, you and I never talked about that. I didn't even bring this up with you because I didn't want to hear any. I wanted to do this all on my own, honestly. And so then I bought your book, The Weight Loss Apocalypse. It came in the mail, and then I got like your HCG, like your little your like the booklet that you write up. You write.
Yeah, my little workbook.
Yeah. And so then I did everything like just based on that, and I really was like, God, this is so. For me, what I loved about that was that it really taught me about eating to hunger, and then with the HCG not having the hunger there, it just allowed that process to kind of hold on a second. Probably an hour. Okay, stop it. So then there was never any time, like anytime I felt fearful, I would go into those feelings of fear, or like I would have those moments those dipping moments in my stomach where I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna flip, I'm gonna mess up or something like that, and then I'd sit in it and go, okay, what are you afraid of? What is it you're afraid of? You know what? No, you've totally got this. Everything's okay. Just be in the fear. Be in that room. Be in that room where there's no way out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt really good. And then I was petrified coming out of the low calorie diet because of the history that I've had before. And I did wonderfully with that. And I actually did it for 8 or 9 weeks, and not introducing any of the sugars or the breads because those used to be taboo for me. And so now I've been completely just, eating whatever I want when I want and all of that. And I thought, you know what? I think I'm maintaining my weight. I didn't check. I didn't check, but I became very active again. Not like exercising or going to Bikram every day or any of that, but just enjoying the mountains of California and hiking with my kids, with music, and it was a different thing for me. It wasn't about fitness or calorie counts or anything like that. It was just about pure nature. I caught myself smiling all the time, like just totally, in the morning getting up and seeing like nature, and because we don't have that here in Florida, it's so hot and gross. You have to like, if you want to exercise, you got to do it on a treadmill, or but you can't really be in nature unless you're like at the beach or something. So all that was going, really well, and we went through the hurricane and went through putting my mom in a nursing home and a lot of drama with my sister that we will talk about for sure. And then as I started to get back into, okay, you could just, you go back to eating to hunger and all of that, I was completely fine. And I've been fine in terms of, feeling stable with all of that and not thinking about it. But then I decided, because I thought, okay, well, you're cured. So, let's try another round. Day 3, I'm flipping out.
Okay,
and
well,
I can't tell you why.
I could tell you, but the fact that what you're not looking at is, why would you do another round? What's the point of another round?
I guess just to see if I was, completely cured.
Be honest with yourself. What's the point of a round of HCG?
Yeah, I guess I just had anticipated that if we had talked. Well, I mean, I knew I was going to lose weight.
Oh,
but
that's the part. You're going to have to go deeply into your own honesty why you want to do it. So that tells me a lot, right? When someone does it for weight loss, you will relapse, and it's usually very quickly. So in your mind, you're still holding on to the body image stuff. I have to tell you, the last time we talked, I knew that. I knew it, but you know what? To me, that's not a bad thing. It's a process of awareness. Yeah. I'm aware over here, right?
Yes.
It doesn't mean anything until it has meaning. Like when I give you direction, it's from this awareness. So I might be able to talk to someone and have total discernment around what they're doing, but if they're not aware and they don't have the will to change it, nothing I say is going to do any good. So all I can do is be encouraging. Okay, do another round. I'm not going to sit here and I could say, well, if the context for why you're doing the round is for this reason, this is what we would expect on the back end. And no matter where you're at and what you think or what you want to prove to yourself, the truth will always come forward. The problem lies in you holding yourself to some outcome that isn't even real. So often it's, I'm healed, I'm cured, I want to go back into losing weight, and you didn't even see that, right? So you're holding yourself to this high level of. I saw it. So you're holding yourself to a high level of awareness without the awareness yet. There's nothing wrong with that.
That was the plan. That was like I had all the boxes checked.
Yes.
Part of that plan.
I'm so aware. I think I should lose some weight. Do you hear the two conflicting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, and I told. Okay,
so what you're not acknowledging is the context for why you believe you should be losing weight and where.
I'll be better.
Yeah, so you're coming from a state of not good enough. You're still coming from a state of this isn't right.
Yeah.
It's that negative state. You're still coming from a state of duality. It's either this or that. I want that, not this. And you don't see it. Because in your mind, it's the right thing to do versus the wrong thing to do. So it's that you're still in that state. And it's not with everything. It could be, like I said before we started recording, it's like in certain areas. So in other places, you're free, it's easy, you're more relaxed. It isn't dualistic. It's, I can adapt to all of it. It doesn't have to be this or that, because anything in between I can handle. So you're not living in that state of divisiveness. But in terms of your body image, it certainly is a threat to you. And you might be distracted by the idea that there's the food issue distraction. So in your mind, you're like, oh, I feel good with food. I am here nor there with it. It's so easy. There's no impulsivity, but you're not realizing, or you're not aware yet, that the only reason you have that freedom is because you aren't, in effect, currently trying to change the body. But the moment you go in.
And then the minute that I did that again.
Correct.
I mean, it was like I did fine on the loading days, of course. And then the first day, I was like picking at stuff. And I'm like, where'd that come from? And then I started looking at it. And then like I thought, oh, you know what? I'll just load one more day and then start tomorrow. And then when I said that, I'm like, oh my fucking, like I went to bed like freaking out for the first time in like 4 months. Like that, none of that was going on for me.
Yeah. Well, and you had to have been in a state of pause, you know. Like I said, a lot of people push pause.
I went down to get my coffee, and I went, you know what? I'm not fucking doing this. So I don't have to do this. I'm perfectly fine. Perfectly happy the way I am.
Yeah, content.
Why did I ever jump into bed with the devil again? Like it was so clear to me. And you remember when I was trying on the clothes and I was crying in the dressing room, and that was like the moment where I had to get out of. I had to like be in the room by myself.
Yeah, it was a big breakthrough for you. That was big.
I was like right there in that moment, and I went. It's like an alcoholic or a heroin addict or somebody just saying no. Or like your thing the other day. You were talking about that guy. He was a rich guy and he was hot, but he treated her like shit. And you remember it was like I think it was just your last session online, and the guy comes back. He's like, "Here's the ring," and you're like, "No fucking way, I'm moving on."
Oh yes, exactly.
I'm over here. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. It was like the light bulb went off. I threw that shit away, and I'm like immediately, completely felt. I don't know, 200% better.
Yeah, and it's a real physical reaction too. You physically feel immediately physically feel different, emotionally feel different. Well, it has to do with you wanted the riches, right? So there is still the allure, right, of the riches, and that the riches have something you don't have. So there has to be, for there to be an allure, you have to feel and believe that you are lacking. I have a lack. I am in the negative. There is something wrong. So you have to be in a state of like insecurity to want to pursue with that type of energy backing it. Okay, because there are a lot of people who pursue riches or pursue something that's above and beyond the norm, but they're not pursuing it out of lack. It might just be, I really would like to, buy a house, which is a rich, it doesn't necessarily mean, someone who doesn't need to have a house to be happy, or they're going to be emotionally less responsive to someone who's using the house to prove something, right? You're a real estate agent. Take someone who is using the house as a promotion of themselves versus someone who is not.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it does. It does. I'm not in that market per se here. Like everybody here is like Midwest, real conservative.
Got it.
But like a car for sure. I see it. I mean, I remember we have like this really good this economical car that we drive. Because we have a nice car too, but we take that car a lot of places when we're going on high mileage trips. And our friends drive like these really nice, like, $70,000, $80,000 cars. And when he saw that car, he was like, what's the deal with that car? Like, it was like completely beneath us to drive it. And I was like, it's great on gas. Like, what the hell is your problem? Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I see that in people. And, even in my kids today, like, when we take the dogs to the beach, we take my mom's beater because I don't give a shit like to get sand and dirt in it. I'd rather have a nice time just driving, with the dogs in it.
Yeah, so it's like taking an inanimate object and then creating an extension of yourself through it. Yeah. Like extending who you are into your...
Kids, I asked them, like, who is totally embarrassed driving in this car? And Ariel's like, I'm fine. I don't give a crap. And my littler one, she says, oh my God, I'm hiding. It's like so easy. And I'm like, I said, I remember being like that when I was a teenager.
Yeah. Because you're so concerned about other people's perception. And the critical perception. It's always concerned with the critical perception, So anyway, so you could say that you've done that with the body you're in. It has been an extension of who you think you are, and the beliefs about it and the different types of social structures around body image you've internalized. And so you and I both know thin supremacy exists. And if you believe it, and you give it, if you actually give it existence, meaning it does have relevance, you're always going to be sensitive to other people's perception or thinking, other people thinking that you are lesser than. So in reality, what you're doing is you're giving other people's thoughts and perceptions of you power.
Yeah.
Right? That's really where it is.
Correct.
Other people's thoughts about you. And so if we really just get simple, what you need to do is be okay with negative thoughts that people have about you.
Mm-hmm.
Diminishing thoughts. She's so inferior. Diminishing thoughts. You have to be okay with those. You have to face them and know they exist and accept that they are going to be there. And know the difference between the truth and their perception.
Yeah.
Right? What you've done is you're taking their perception and making it truth.
Right.
Right? You had said in your email about, being the last session where I said, you got to be okay sucking. Who cares if you suck? Suck. What's wrong with that? Is that right?
Right.
Was I right? Did I even post that one? I have another one I'm posting that's pretty good. That I recorded on Friday. But, you got to be okay with other people believing and thinking that you suck. In relation to your body, because we could say you're okay with other people thinking that in different areas, and you're totally cool with it. They think I suck religiously.
Right.
They think I'm a terrible person politically. They think that my clothes aren't nice enough. They think whatever those thoughts are, there are certain beliefs in there and structures in there that you do not attach to and do not give credibility to. Someone who does has less power then, because you just don't care.
Right.
It's not important to you. And you can tell that you know the truth of you driving a car, right? Where someone might believe if I drive that car, I will be perceived as sucky. And they don't want car suckness projected onto them. Make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And so to you, you're like, why does that matter? It's just a goddamn car. It gets you from A to B. So you have this truth and awareness that maybe some other person doesn't.
Yeah.
But when it comes to body image, more than likely, what has happened in your recovery is the thing about recovery is this: you're either recovered like fully or you're in the process of recovery. It's very unlikely that you have fully recovered and then relapsed.
Mm-hmm.
So the process of recovery to me is you're pushing pause on the body image, which is hugely relieving. It is so massive just to push pause. Because before you didn't know there was a pause button.
Yeah.
So you just suffered. Without rest. Continuous, perpetual suffering. And to know that there is a way to get relief instantly is beautiful. Right? So what I found, if I were to explain it, is often people think pause is eject, and it's not. It's just pause.
Wait, say that part again. Oftentimes.
People think that pushing pause is the same as pushing eject.
Okay.
You have paused the program. You have not ejected it. So you're giving yourself temporary grace from it. I don't have to worry about it right now. I am not going to make it important right now. But it is still there. Yeah. And at some point, I will reactivate it. But I'm hopefully by then, I'll be in a place where I can handle that program. But I don't want to get rid of the program. Right? Because I really want to be thinner. It's still attaching to the body. That's the problem, is you are still holding on to some concept that life is better, is freer, is more expressive through the conditions of a thinner body.
Yeah. But, I mean, being in, it's like an edge, there's an edge where when you dip into the freedom, where people get it, and I guess I've experienced, I experienced the, what do you call it, like the bliss of just, being heart-centered with my family, my husband, my mother, my kids. And then I went into it was focused, it was focused like something to do. I was diligent and focused and, methodical in the way that I handled the protocol. And then when I came off, I was really scared. Like, oh my God.
Well, that fear, that fear comes from, it doesn't just show up. There's a source of that fear, and that still exists.
Yeah.
And that's what I talk about. I'm like, if you do this, when you transition, you're going to have raging fear if it's for this context. And that becomes a problem so the fear came up because of the reasoning behind it, which is I gained thinnerness, I gained healthiness. You think it's you. You're making it all about you, right? Like, I've improved me through this protocol, even though it has nothing to do with you. But the illusion that it's for you, attached from the body, right? And so the benefit of the work that we've done is you didn't respond to it. That doesn't mean that it doesn't still exist. The source of that fear that created that fear is still there. It was still there even though you ignored it. You just ignored it, denied it. And it probably gratified the maintenance that you were betting on. You were gambling. I'm going to gamble. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's just say, that would be my guess. I'm going to make an assumption. That would be my guess, that fear was there because the integrity of why you did the protocol wasn't in line with truth. It was in line with ego. Okay. Even though you can create an idea of what truth is, the truth comes out when that fear shows up. Okay. That says a lot. That in reality, ego is so manipulative. It is so convincing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you find yourself not being truthful.
Well, and ego creates fear when it's exposed. Shit, the ego shows up. Yeah. Crap, there was ego involved in this. Meaning it was about survival of me, not the body, right? So the willingness to ignore it and to not go back into dieting is a big deal, right? But you more than likely got gratification in weight stabilization to where you just ignored it and let it be its thing, which is a benefit, right? You could say that was good because you learned you don't have to diet. The body is capable of doing what it's doing. Even if you didn't obsess about your weight, you were probably still body checking somehow, taking assessments elsewhere.
I would, with my clothes, just making sure they still fit the same way.
Okay, that's it right there. Just that right there is just, that's the core of the issue that you came to me with. That still is there. Mm-hmm. It's not as inflamed and raging. It's, but it's still on fire.
Yeah. So, but I'm just saying, like, in the last, I wasn't doing that until I started the next protocol and kind of decided, that I'm not doing that again, So I see there's what do you call it? Like a line. There's a line there, and even when I listen to your sessions with other people are like, they're kind of like waffling in between the lines, and in my mind, I'm like so crystal clear, like emphatic, like I'm not going back on a diet, and like I could care less what I would. Like, I know one of the things was, with the girl that she was afraid to weigh herself. I don't care what the number is. I really don't care.
Okay.
I honestly don't care. If I had a scale, I would weigh myself, but I don't. And but I.
So the question you have to ask yourself is, why even get close to that line anymore? Why even go close to it?
Exactly. I know that there's it's done, but so like I'm convinced of that, and I'm not going back down that road. But I know that I now feel like I wasn't recovered.
Well, I would agree. That's what I meant by the pause versus the recovery. You were in a process of recovery. You were not recovered. And and that's okay. That's okay. That's not a negative thing. I'm not judging that. That to me is not a judgment. It is a fact. Yeah. It's like just stating a fact. This is orange. The shirt I'm wearing is orange today. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. You're either in a process of recovery or you are recovered. There is no, when someone recovers, it is like complete and total separation. And it's like divorce. It is like dying. It is a death. It is complete. It is over. There is no return. And you would, and you go back and look at it and go, I'd rather die than return. Like lifelessness, it's hard. It's like you can't not see what you see when you're fully recovered. You can't unrecover. You're either in the process of recovery or you are recovered. If you're unrecovering, you're in the process. That makes sense? That means there's just, it was conditional. Like I said, it's still beneficial. It's still important. It is still important to feel that freedom, to have pause. Pushing pause is important to me because it makes you aware that recovery does exist. It exists. Yeah. For someone as dark and sick as I was, there is no concept of relief. It does not exist.
For sure. And when I called you,
you were there.
What was it? March. I was like on a 2-month binge of just complete, I was in a dark place.
And it's hopeless.
And I had there was no way to get out. And
it's hopeless.
Just the relief that I got was, today, just the fact that I chose and said, I am not going there. It's the confirmation. It's like it's there. But now being here, I'm like, okay, well, why did you do that? Why were you doing that? And why did that happen again? So I know I've got some stuff in there, like some major, questions and things. Like I'm looking at things differently because I no longer have my armor on. You know what I mean?
No, I said that when I responded to you and said, well, the good news is you're humble enough to tell yourself the truth. And that right there just opened the door. You just opened the door for yourself in that humility. Just a moment of humility is so, it creates the space for this work to be done. And what's amazing about it is the work that needs to be done is really right in front of your nose. You can't even, and that's the thing. It's like, it's right here. It's so right, so close you can't see it. Yeah. And it's like those moments. It's like a moment of seeing it differently can just completely dissolve something that has been there for decades.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and that's the part for me that didn't ever seem possible because I've done everything. I've tried everything. I've done every kind of therapy. I've seen head doctors, like every single kind of thing. I've done it to try to fix it from a diet, but also from a mental health perspective, from pills, from anxiety pills, everything. And this was so easy and so immediate.
Rapid. So part of it is too, we were telling you to go, and this is the hard part, and I'm assuming this was what was difficult to contact me because you're aware the direction you go to have that freedom is painful. It's like going into pain.
I'm not afraid. I forgot. Or maybe you don't forget, but subconsciously you just decide, oh yeah, I'm not gonna go down that road. We're not going over there. We're just gonna hang out over here where it feels good. And then, because I remember, like I said in the beginning, when when all of those feelings were coming up, even when I was doing the hunger scale way before, when you and I were working together and I was working on that, I was like, what are you afraid? You really were pressing in there. It's okay. It's okay to be right here. This is okay. You're fine right here.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, you start focusing on other things, and then my whole focus changed out of those places. And then now, I'm looking back at it, going, it's okay. Like, it was just that moment. I went, oh my God, remember, we went down this road. We're not going back here.
Yeah, but you needed to have your own. You needed to. No, what happens is what you do is you start to go back into your pride, and you start to have kind of an inflated idea of what you think you're doing. So even someone like myself, who's the guide, you're dismissing. I'm going to do it. And that's important.
My way.
Yes. And it's my way. And sometimes you have to go back into your way to realize that my way sucks. I don't like my way.
Yeah.
I don't like my way anymore. My way is the way of the ego. I'm serving something that's it's gratifying in that the ego nature, right? It's gratifying that. And it wouldn't make sense to have talked to me at that point because you wouldn't have listened to anything I was going to say. So it was a good decision for you to pause our work together because it would have just been really frustrating, right? So having, I think, your own intuition around that, like, you know what, whatever she's going to say, I'm going to do this. And I'm okay with the consequences. And that was good. In my opinion, I think it's good. It brings you back to, how did I lose touch with reality? Well, you lost touch with reality a long time ago. You just didn't see it because you were gratifying the survival animal in you. It's gratifying. It actually gives you pleasure. That's what's the other thing is you have to surrender some of that gratification to get freedom. Like, it would be so great to be seen as the most successful, having the nicest body, or getting back to a body to where, you could probably look at it and go, well, what I was doing with Robin was artificial. It was an artificial thing that I did. It was powerful in what I was doing, or it didn't start out artificial. It was real out of my pain and suffering, but I made it artificial eventually to where it was just surface stuff because I wanted to go back into the desire I really want to be thinner. And I'm thinking I can have this higher level of consciousness and placate a lower level of consciousness need. And you can't have it both.
Yes.
You can't serve the master of the animal brain with the enlightened way of being. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
You lose it. You lose your freedom if you are serving a lower self.
Yeah.
Right? That, I think, is something, I think that's very common, by the way. I see it a lot. So where someone goes, even the idea that people come to me with is, okay, Robin's going to help me feel better about myself, and I'll relax around food, and I'll be able to eat to hunger. And once I feel like I have that under control, we can go back into losing weight. I know you're laughing at it right now because you're going, yeah, that's not going to work because you just tested it and it didn't work. See, now you're laughing because it's like, hey, you can't, nope. You doesn't know. And I understand that, but you know how many people have that inside is their motive. And for good reason. It feels better to them. It feels better. At least they're willing to try what I'm doing because of that, right? And so you could say it's beneficial for people to think that to start because they're willing to do what I'm asking them to do in that superficial pause of the body image. It's highly beneficial. So I assume most people that reach out, that's what they're thinking. I don't come out and say, by the way, I just want you to know that I know you're not taking this serious.
Yeah.
To me, it's a beneficial aspect of their process. Some people just do it to
For sure.
start. They get incredible,
told me.
right? It goes beyond what they ever expected around like, holy shit, this feels so good. I've had clients intend to go back into losing weight after they do the work with me, and they never get there ever again. They recover. They're like, holy shit, I didn't know this freedom existed. I would rather. So some people come to me with their HCG in hand, with their doctor's prescription, and after 4 sessions, they're like, Robin, are you okay if I never do this protocol again? And what do you think my answer is?
Yeah.
Hell yeah, throw it away. You know?
Yeah.
It's really something that I reserve for very select few. And it's, to me, a tool for the body, for sure. But when it comes to the clientele that do it, they have to be in a very high state to surrender food without feeling entitled to a reward. They have to do it without some concept of reward, needing a reward. It's like going into a state of Buddhist, like, sacrifice, to where it's not really sacrificial.
Yeah.
And what do you think happens when they go into the third phase? Do they have fear?
Yeah.
Not at all. They feel nothing.
Oh, you're talking about your people.
Yes.
The people that you.
Yeah, that don't.
That you've worked with that you're endorsing or saying that they're okay to do it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, where I'm like, they're in a place where food is meaningless. It's wonderful at the same time, and there's no relative deprivation anymore. And they are so detached from the body that, I mean, this is a rarity, you know, but I also, again, see that it's beneficial because of what happened to you.
Yeah, no, I'm like so crystal clear.
Yeah.
Like before in my mind, I was like, yeah, no, I want to get healthy, and then I'll, later on I'll do it again. And so I was like maybe 1 foot in and 1 toe out, and now I'm like, I have absolutely, like, there would be no reason ever to do it. Like, I just see it. Like, I mean,
what's the point?
I went and bought it. I got it. I started. I'm like, and that came right back up. I'm like, oh, fuck no. No, I'm not going there.
Yeah.
I am not selling my soul. No way.
Right? Doesn't that feel good? Wouldn't you rather just be
in the last 3 days, I have felt so good.
Yeah.
Like,
okay, so imagine.
I had like this ice pick in my head. And I don't never get headaches. So that was like, right at the time when this was going on. And I was like, man, I have this headache. I don't know why. And it was all the stress buildup.
Yes.
Like, and then all of a sudden, like, boom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so when you look at the protocol, to me, it is a tool. When people are in a completely different state of being with their body, with food, and they need to physically be a good candidate for it, to where, the decades of life, binge eating and destroying their endocrine system, the body can actually heal itself. But there is benefit to the aid of this type of hormonal therapy. But it really is the person who is actually actively implementing the protocol needs to be in a very high state of existence to do it without being thrown back down into survival mode. It's kind of
your,
like,
like your findings of, menopausal women that didn't have eating disorders or they had a healthy weight, like they really benefited from it.
Yes.
They weren't like,
they weren't insane about their body image. Correct. And they weren't dieters. They weren't chronic dieters. They were just like, attracted to the protocol hormonally because they'd accepted menopause before, right? And so they weren't emotionally feeling bad about themselves or isolating themselves or, and that's the thing. Being that I monitored so many people, it was like the people who come into this with all this desperation and this ego and the narcissism, they are the worst candidates. They are the people with the biggest disruption to the protocol. They will fuck with it on so many levels. And, and then as I, went out of a clinical environment and started observing people. When I wrote Weight Loss Apocalypse, I kind of got more involved in the social media aspect of the HCG protocol, and it was disgusting what was going on. Absolutely, like, holy shit, we are now in a circus of narcissism and people with major issues, and they're getting help from anorexics online. Anyways, and it's and I did talk about that in Weight Loss Apocalypse very briefly, and that the diet industry and how it's been changed because of that industry. Yes, the integrity is just really lacking. And the promoting of this idea of you'll be happier when you're thinner, and I saw it on so many cases, and so the type of clients attracted to me also became more intensified as after publishing Weight Loss Apocalypse. The person willing to go to a clinic is very unique to someone who is looking for a quick fix on the internet. I still found a lot of extreme cases at the clinic where people would come in as if it was like cocaine. And these women were like not really overweight, and they were like frothing at the mouth, eyes raging in a like a bulimic rage with the protocol. And if we did not give them a prescription, it was enraged. You know what I'm saying? And so it's I think I go back to this protocol. To me, it's a miracle. I'm a huge advocate. I looked at it for years, not as a diet, but as a hormonal therapy. I studied the hormones to try to understand it enough. That's how empowered or how much I believe in it, that I devoted hours of obsessive studying to try to understand it from a current biological understanding of it. But psychologically, where I'm at with it today is that it is really only a relevant tool for people who have recovered. For the purpose that I wrote in Weight Loss Apocalypse, right? That idealistic, this can heal so many things of the body. That's what happens when someone is recovered, right? Especially if the body has, is morbidly obese and has, permanent damages. I also see it as valuable as a recovery process tool. Only because
that I agree with, absolutely.
Right? Because it gets you where you just came back to me to talk about. It got you this place, which to me is hugely beneficial. It is like, it's like a humility machine. Let's just suffer some more.
And then also, just realizing, the benefits of, eating to hunger. Like, really, even though it suppresses your appetite, when you eat, like, I used to just eat. You just, like, you're a robot. There's food in front of you, you just shove it in your face. Today, just the conditioning from that was so much. It's like, check in with your stomach. Do you have a growl there? Do you have an empty space there? Does it feel hungry? Do you feel hungry?
Yeah.
Okay, well, then we could just start getting into a conversation about the hunger. And it wasn't, that never went away, even after, when I was done with the very low carb diet. Then I transitioned back into, just normal eating, and still was there until I went right back. And then I'm like, food was restricted, and I was like making deals with myself.
And anxiety, it really clouds that feeling. Anxiety makes it very difficult. So when you have that enraged fear about your weight, or that you've done some irreparable damage, your food becomes very highly threatening. So food becomes a life and death type of threat. It's very difficult. It feels like walking on a tightrope to eat the hunger. And that's what I found too. It's like this whole concept of hunger is only beneficial if you're relaxed. if you're in
Correct.
a
For sure.
survival state of fear around
Yeah.
regaining weight, and that's what I found with the
Yeah.
protocol, is that people found it very easy to listen to hunger while they were losing weight on the protocol, right? They found it very easy to eat to hunger when they had to follow these rigid rules. So there is no like fear around the food, because you just know, if I choose what's on the protocol, the food is all safe, right? So you get this, you're in this almost hyper vacuum that is not normal on the protocol. And so as much as it is beneficial for people who have no sense of awareness of hunger, the problem is if they're attaching to the body image, and when they transition into learning to eat like a regular human being, that fear goes way up. Anxiety goes way up, and what they thought was easy on the protocol becomes very distorted when they transition off, because they're so concerned about regaining weight, and am I eating too much? So it really projects onto the restrictions of the food, and so it's not safe anymore. So it's like living in a cage with a bear. You know, I'm supposed to stay in the cage and the bear's in here with me and I'm gonna die. Right? And that's what it feels like. And so it's something, again, what I wrote in Weight Loss Apocalypse is like, that's the best case scenario when someone is fully recovered ahead of time. Right? So eating to hunger is really important.
It's just to feel good. And I feel like just to continue this conversation and to feel good and to uncover what, like this David Hawkins, like I bought his book and stuff, and I really love that letting go thing. Like I can really, I try it in many, this is going to be like a whole nother session that we're going to talk about, but like I really feel like that energy when you let go, where it's like heart, it's from your heart.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to explore it more, like from this context, like.
Well, you have to go into acceptance. Yeah. Letting go is the same word of acceptance. They're kind of the same thing. I have to accept.
Yeah.
So you invite in and accept whatever it is you're afraid of. So the direction, if you want to visualize it, our instincts and our wiring as animals is to go away from things that feel threatening. Avoid it. Mm-hmm. We deny it. So there is the denial, the avoidance, the hiding, the don't acknowledge it. Those are all forms of kind of repressing emotions. Another way is to fight it, right? Through work. And like we could say dieting is a form of fighting emotions. It's still repressive because you're not facing the emotion. You're just trying to find a way to compensate for it, right? So you're still trying to hide from an emotion through some compensatory behavior. So the goal then is to go, if we stop trying to change reality, you end up with these emotions you don't want, right? So by fixing the body as it is, you're now having to face all the emotions for why you were trying to fix it, right? So the goal is that reality isn't changeable. You have to change. So, and we could look at the big picture and go, well, this whole thing is really being less adaptable. Like I'm not as adaptable emotionally. And that creates a more sensitivity to these types of fears, because if I'm not adaptable, then the world has to adapt to me. Right? And the goal is to reverse it. Life is not changeable. You have to adapt to it. So the way for this to work is for you to be continuously inviting in reality and adapting to it. But the way to do that, you have to have a sense of ability. Okay, and it doesn't take much. This is the thing. You can have zero ability.
You have to have a sense of vulnerability.
Like I can do this.
Ability.
Yeah, courage is the key to get through it. You have to have a moment of courage, even if you aren't aware of an ability. The courage to do it is very important. And that's the courage that that's a word I would use to describe your moment in the dressing room. That was a moment of courage. Just a moment.
Yeah.
Without knowing if you could handle it. You just sat in it, right? So there's a moment of courage. It really changes your self-awareness of what you can handle. Because you become aware, I can handle this. Holy shit, you don't have the sense of handling it before you handle it. It comes after you handle it, right? So going into space of vulnerability is also part of that process. But you have to be, so the technique, we can call it a technique if you want to call it a technique, is to create and to invite in and to welcome emotions that make you feel like shit. That I'm going to die. I'm going to lose this. Yes, you are. All those fear thoughts are going to come in, and your goal is to surrender to them all.
Robin, hang on one second.
Sure.
Oh my God, one of my kids has never found any more. Okay, thank you. So now my little one is upset that her sister gets to borrow her phone for a minute. Okay, so let's see. So the thing that I was thinking when you were saying all of this is, what I tend to do is when all of those feelings come up, I tend to think and this is conditioning on my part that got me a long way with certain things, is thoughts are things. So thoughts are things, and we don't want negative thoughts. So let it go. Just let it go and envision something else. Envision this. Envision what you want. Envision like a more like the law of attraction kind of thing, like imagery. And so, for me, it's been a struggle with, and that's why I brought up the David Hawkins thing, because I've listened to it ad nauseum, but I still can't get the physical thing going. Like, and I'm trying, but I'm having I'm having challenges with the actually going into those emotions. And I don't think it's as much from fear, but it's more from conditioning, like that it's bad and you're not supposed to go there because then that'll bring more of that.
Okay, so this comes from a false belief system that has been taught that if you think positively, positive things will come to you. This comes from a belief system out there that says, like, the power of attraction, right, to some degree has truth to it, but you have to look at context under positive things. Like, thoughts are things, right? And your thought is that I want to think positively. Well, how do you do that when underneath it all, your context for the positiveness is self-centered? It's protecting yourself from what you don't want. So you're now using positive concepts to compensate for the negative reality that's underneath it all, right? So the goal is to not do that. That's a distraction. That's a program that, once again, is not...
I'm bringing it up because it's like, for
well, it's a block. To me, I'm listening, you're going, oh, well, that's a block.
Yeah, it feels like a roadblock.
Yeah, it is. And again, you could say, well, it serves a certain purpose, but it only serves a purpose for people who are underneath not complicated, right? Mm-hmm. People who have complication will take that thought and use it or abuse it to hide something they don't want. So, the goal is to invite in all of the emotions you're trying to hide. So we could say a lot of times people are afraid of emotion. I don't know if that's you. I don't think you're necessarily afraid of emotions.
No, I wear everything open. Like, I'll tell you everything that's going on for me. I'll cry. I'll scream. Whatever.
And I've worked with you long enough to make that assessment. She's not afraid of emotions. She just believes her emotions as if they're real, not seeing that the emotion is coming from something that is probably not very truthful. She's trying, so that's where I would go with you is let's go into those emotions. But you need to stop giving him so much credibility.
Yeah.
Right. So, you have to once you look at these emotions, you can see, well, they're only true from one relative position. And it's usually the self-centered position. Right. So when you go into the concept of letting go, it really is about grace and forgiveness. Can you let go of that belief? Can you let go of the thought that, your uncle who molested you, can you let go of being angry about it? Can you let go of the anger? So what is it going to take to be, and I just threw that out there, but it's not necessarily your story, but imagine being angry about that, angry at your parents for not protecting you. You're holding on to that, right? And it's not going to serve you or anybody. It only serves in the moment of a coping child, and to hold on to that is childish. And you find out later in life when your life sucks, and you've repeated the same exact circumstance with your marriages and your relationships and now your own kids, and now you hate everybody because hate is the way you cope. So can you let go of that? Well, the only way to let go of it is for you to give that grace, to be able to forgive that situation. So what you go into the mind of what would it feel like to forgive that situation? It would feel amazing. It would relieve me of so much. I could have a different relationship. I had a client who had tons of anger towards her father. This was a few years ago. And in one of the sessions, we were talking about, do you want to be angry with your father? Is that what you want? Do you like the anger you have with your father? And she was like, no, I hate it. I was like, well, what would it feel like to forgive him? Not to change him, but to forgive him. What would it feel like? To just accept that he did the best he could, right? I know you've heard me say that with other people and with you, and to go into the grace and forgiveness. Well, if I do that, then it feels really wonderful because I can love him.
And go do that.
It was an instant in a session. It was one of those instantaneous shifts that happened in someone's mind. Oh my God, I would rather that. Why? And so it really pulled her into grace for her father. It was like, why wouldn't you do that? Why would you sit and hold on to this festering, horrible, burning, poisonous apple?
Yeah.
So
I guess for me, I just don't know what's wrong.
Well,
I'm not really sure what's in there.
Well, and this is where, again, you become sure when you invite it in. So that is the goal, is to invite in the emotions. And you do this by making everything in your life static. What that means is you'll never be thinner. Ever.
Yeah.
Right? So that is not negotiable. That's how I did it with body image. So that's where I would start. Let's just start with the body image, because how you relate to your body is essentially the foundation for how you relate to every relationship in essence. In general, the body is the only thing you're actually attached to. You're not attached to your children. You're not attached to your husband. You are attached to the body. Right? And so how you relate to the body ultimately is a real, allows, in relation to yourself, your identity. How the body plays a role in how you identify yourself.
You mean how you look and that?
It doesn't matter. It's sexuality, your athletic ability, your gender, your hair, how your makeup looks or no makeup. How the body is being used as in a relationship to form an identity, right?
Mm-hmm.
The goal is that the body is not used in any way as a relationship, as who you are in any way. That would be the goal, right? But to start, we need to just look at how you relate with this body in terms of your identity socially and within yourself, because sometimes people get to the point, I know I did, where I did not care about it socially so much as I did about how I want it to be. And what's amazing is when I realized this is not about anybody else's opinion, it's about mine. underneath
That's
that,
funny.
underneath that was actually fear of being embarrassed, which is absolutely social. So it did have to do with other people.
I look at that, but then I'm the one that totally makes an ass out of myself in public, like on purpose. Like I'm, like when I'm with people that I'm really comfortable with, like my good friends.
Yeah.
Like I will talk about my faults and we'll laugh about the stupid thing I did, or just like the clumsiness, but there's pieces of it that don't connect. Like I understand what you're saying. Like for me, it's about it. I don't know. I'm in a different place mentally with where I was before with you, but I'm noticing other triggers that are coming up now, and it's about not being enough. It's about not measuring up to others. That's what it is. But it is about sucking. Obviously, it's that. It's just there's like. I'm in, like I said about my armor, so now I'm in all of these, like we have a place now in LA that's our home, and so I'm meeting some friends and starting to mingle with people, and then socially with the kids. And
that could have a lot to do with just being in a new environment. That could have to do with you're now in a new culture and you have no legs, or getting your, what's the word, getting a sense of
who I am, like what I'm.
Not who I am. It's how you relate in that culture, and it's a new culture, and if you're in your own mind, want to be in a certain position, you have it, that positionality that you want relative to this culture, it's going to feel very vulnerable, and it will need armor to start, because you got to learn the culture. You got to get in and see what it's all about. And you're in LA. I got a lot of clients in LA. I should make a trip down there.
I bet you do.
I do. I also have a lot of clients in the South. I have a lot of clients in Russia. I have quite a few clients in Australia. I mean, there becomes a predictable, But, yeah, I mean, you have to, would be an awesome opportunity right now for you to be real. But it would be like facing the emotions that you want to avoid to do it. I could see why this would have kind of inflamed you, because there is, depending on where you live, as you know, there is a status type of culture, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that's what it is. I think it's just, like meeting people, and then, I'm meeting people, and I have let's say a standard. That's a weird word, but let's just say that when I'm with people, I like to feel good. I like the conversation.
Okay, that statement. Hold on. That one statement means so much. When I'm with people, I like to feel good. Okay, see, that's important. I needed to clarify that, because I like to feel good, meaning you feel confident.
No.
Okay, so when I'm with people, I have a standard. I want to feel good. What does that feeling feel like?
Like, that we're having, that we are relating.
Okay, would you say comfortable with each other?
Yeah, like I like what they're saying.
Okay, but if you don't like what they're saying?
Personally, I don't like to hang out with people who all they talk about are their Jimmy Choo this or their bags. To me, that's like annoying, and I'm not into that.
But what's wrong with you not being into that? And what's wrong with them being into it? So maybe the issue here is,
these are the questions that bother me, and I don't know.
So hold on. You have to really look at, why would you be critical of someone like that?
I don't know. It just bothers me that people talk like that, like they're trying to puff themselves up or something.
So?
Or that they do it.
Why does it matter? Why does that matter to you? Is it because
does it matter to me?
Yeah, that's what they're doing.
To be in their presence.
You don't
why would I want to hang out with them?
You don't have to, but why would you be offended by it? You know, this is,
I'm not offended. It's just I make choices. So I, like, for instance, like, for you don't, like, some people love the beach. Some people don't like the beach because it's sandy and they don't like coming home with sand on their skin. I have friends, that just are adverse to sand, let's say. So it's the same thing to me. Like, I remember not too long ago, we were in LA, and there's a group of people that were all together because our kids are in the same class. So we go sit down, we have a meal, and I remember sitting there thinking, oh my God, I wonder how many people are listening to this conversation. Like, because it was, to me, it was very pretentious, and it was about stuff, like, it was just about fake stuff. And for me, I didn't feel interested. This is exactly what it was. I didn't feel interested in the conversation. I could relate to the conversation. I have nice things, but it wasn't like something that was interesting to me. And so to me, I felt like there was a what do you call it? Like a motive that people were talking about that stuff to build themselves up, and that it wasn't an authentic meeting. It wasn't authentic.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. That is the thing for me, is that I don't feel it's authentic. And then I feel cheapened, like I shouldn't be there. Like, I don't want to be there. And then the next choice I make, then I feel guilty. Like, oh, you know what, Lisa? You shouldn't be so selective. You don't have any friends out there.
Okay.
That's exactly what this is.
Okay.
That's exactly what this is.
Okay, and I was just about to say, if this is this type of being where they're at, let's not judge it, because to them it feels safe. We could say they need to talk about these things because to them there is a sense of safety in it. It's no different than a bunch of vegans talking about how they're vegans. Okay?
Yes, I totally get that. I get that.
And like dieters who want to talk about their diets. To you, there's no interest in it. You're just like,
organic foods.
Yeah,
Blah, blah, blah.
whatever. It's not that you don't buy organic. It's just like it's not religious to you or moral anymore. It's just, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And I'm going to die. So fuck it. Whatever. So the difference here is that you're desperate for friendship. So what you need to be okay with is not having very many friends. Go there. Go into that space. That's what I mean by let's invite it in. You're not going to have any friends because no one's going to relate to you. Right?
Or is it that I'm so picky?
No.
What is it?
No, it doesn't matter. If that's... Well, that's why I asked immediately, are you judging these people? Because that would be picky. That would be self-righteous. Right? I have friends who are really into their jewelry and their cabins.
Their what?
And their cabins. Shit like that. Okay?
Oh.
If you have a cabin here in Idaho, you're extra special. Because there's only like 2 lakes in this whole state. Okay? So a lake cabin or in Sun Valley, blah, blah, blah. And that's what they need to feel good. I'm okay with that. I don't need to pretend to be that rich. Because I'm not.
Yeah.
Right? So how they are doesn't change how I am. And I'm not willing to change who I am just to make them comfortable. Right?
Right.
So it doesn't really matter to me.
With them, and you still hang out with them, even though despite they talk about that stuff that you don't. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm more weary of friends that are paranoid, shifty-eyed, constantly.
Yeah.
You know, those are people that I kind of distance myself from.
You mean like people who talk about others?
Yes.
Or yeah.
Yeah, I just won't participate in it.
So my big thing is that I feel like I don't like I second guess. Like I have really good friendships with certain people. Like I probably have 5 really great friends that I could tell anything to, including this, and I do, and all that stuff. But there's as I am trying to make some new friendships out there, and my kids have friends, and they're I'm hanging out with the parents, and I'm just sitting there going, I don't like any of these people. And then I'm thinking to myself, well, what kind of am I setting a bad example for my kids? Not, just to be, because I feel kind of like I'm judgy or.
Yes. Okay. So what you're, yes, no, I think that's the right word. There is it sounds like this is your barrier, that there is on some level judgment, But what I'm hearing is that you're wanting to be with like with like. And so if you're with these people, it's kind of making you feel uncomfortable, and that in order to have a conversation, you have to adapt to the conversation. So there's that. Or I have to somehow judge these people. You're positioned in a state of either it's right or wrong. Where why can't you just accept that what they're doing is relevant to them and what they're doing and has nothing to do with you? You're not willing to adapt to it. And so if the friendship works, it'll work because they'll be attracted to your authenticity. Even if you have the freaking purse and the shoes that they're talking about, you don't need to talk about it.
I sit there in my head, I'm thinking if they could read my mind, I'd be like, you know?
Well, and you could be making assumptions based on the superficiality of it. And so, again, the willingness to be real will naturally create people attracted to it or not attracted to it. The goal is that you don't have to manipulate everything around you to have friends, that you just be real and it naturally occur.
Yeah.
I have moved so much in my life, and I have to say, I recovered 20 years ago, so I've had a lot of practice since then. Okay, doing this, moving all over, Minneapolis, California, Alabama, back to Minneapolis, Boise, and you learn that you should, as you are authentic, you are going to meet people who are way into money. You're going to meet people who are way into religion. You're going to meet people way into spirituality and enlightenment and Buddhism, and you're going to meet people who are obsessive compulsive about their food intake, and a variety of all of it within all the people you're going to run into. Why does that have anything to do with you? You know, you're making it about you again.
I guess I'm making it, what I'm making about me is the conversation I'm having about them in my mind, and whether or not that something in there is because I'm uncomfortable with myself or because I really just don't like them.
I think it has more to, if I were to make a guess, Lisa, it has more to do with your desire to make friends. You want to make friends, and you could easily, going into the money conversation, probably, you could, but you don't want to, and you need to make it more natural. You might be more uncomfortable with the process because it's not happening naturally as quickly maybe as you need it to or want it to. I don't know.
I just feel like people are aliens or something. Yeah,
well, you are. I was just going to say, you just projected yourself.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I have two friends out there that I really enjoy, but
I know, but
all the time.
You just heard it when you said it. I am an alien. I am abnormal. Okay, hold on. I have to go to the bathroom really bad. Can you hold on a second? I just have to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back.